Okay, so firstly, I just want to say that we cannot see you. You are all muted, and so on. So don't panic if you haven't done your hair, if you haven't done your makeup. So I thought I'd let you all know that. And hello from us. Thanks for joining our afternoon webinar, Time to Revive, today. You may not, or you may not be aware that we were running weekly webinars during the first and second lockdowns, which helped so many people and business owners. The feedback's been phenomenal. So we thought it was the right time that we did another one. There's been lots of updates. More importantly, how we're going to help you revive, how we're going to help you come through this period. And we're going to give you lots of great content today for you to practice and take away with you, which is going to help you. So for those of you who don't know, my name is Mitch Hahn. I'm CEO at Nordens. We're a firm of chartered accountants and strategic consultants. And today I'm joined, as you can see, by the very in-demand Joe Sword, who is director of our strategic consultancy division and also the founder, co-founder, but I'll let you have it. You're the founder of our very special interactive accelerator program. And Darren, who's also joins us, leads our corporate finance division. And, I don't want to embarrass him, but he's raised millions and his team have raised millions during the last year to help businesses to get through this period. So I am extremely grateful and very lucky to have them both on this webinar. Thank you. So how's this going to go? So it should last no longer than an hour, hour and 15 tops. Joe's going to kindly go through simple things, really simple things that business owners should be doing right now in these tough times, and what his team are advising their clients, which is going to be fantastic content. Joe's then going to discuss all the latest updates from the government and the implications it has on you and your business, which is extremely important. And then we're going to hear from Darren, who's going to go through all the different finance options available for you and your business, which will touch on grants and loans and what to do if this happens and that happens. And Darren will be able to give us some good information. We'll go back to Joe, who's going to be very busy today. He's going to give us other opportunities out there for business owners right now, things that you can do away from what you've probably heard that can really potentially benefit you. And then finally, the famous Brexit. We're going to touch on Brexit in probably more of a headline fashion. It probably deserves its own webinar. But we'll touch on it for what it means for your business and your staff. We'll also do a Q&A at the end, should we have time. So leave your questions in the Q&A box. We'll try and answer them as we go through or at the end if we've got time. If not, we'll definitely answer afterwards, and we'll follow up with you with answers to the questions. I want to add from me personally that we are going to share a lot of content, valuable information, valuable content today. So you may want to take notes, have a pen and paper, or take notes on your laptop, whatever you want to do. But I do think that it's definitely worth taking notes because there's going to be some fantastic content. So let's get going. So Joe, you and I have been chatting. Firstly, welcome. And we've been chatting. I've literally been seeing the impact that your team is having on our clients, and it's phenomenal. So what simple things can business owners do right now or should be doing right now?
Cool. So, hi everyone. I think the one thing that lockdown and this COVID has given everyone is a bit of time to actually reassess and rethink. And I think we've seen a lot of success stories where business owners have just taken that little step back and have actually properly reassessed and reset their expectations. So the first thing I'd like to talk about is setting a clear why, having a clear vision, and setting clear goals. So getting really clear on your purpose. So why you do what you do and how it makes you feel, and your vision, or in other words, long-term ultimate goal. When you have a clear purpose or why that's bigger than even yourself, and a vision that you're really passionate and determined to work towards, this can actually be the difference between persevering or giving up when you're in the tough times. So one key tip is to make sure that your real true purpose and your vision are ultra strong to keep you and your business resilient in the face of these challenges. And alongside that, you need to be setting what's called SMART goals. So it's vital that all the goals you set meet the SMART criteria. So they're specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and they have a timeline or deadline on them. So have a little think about the last goal that you set and didn't achieve. Chances are it fell down because it didn't meet one of those criteria. Whereas flash back to the last achievement you had, it's likely that the goal you set around this was really clear and hit each of that criteria mentioned. So the real point is that weak goals are unlikely to stand up to the test of the environment we're living in. So make sure you follow that SMART principle wherever possible. And of course, setting goals is only one step. You need to take action behind it, but at least you'll be positioned in the best possible way to take that action by setting the goals in the first place. So the next thing I'd like to touch on is your sales and marketing. And one big thing that we're seeing businesses who are thriving in this time is because they're staying close to their customers. Find out what and how your customers are doing at the moment. Find out how their appetites are changing, because it's likely to give you valuable information for the exit of this next lockdown. Likewise, do the same with your suppliers. We're seeing opportunities arise for collaborations up and down the value chain, and this all stems from communication and interaction. Alongside speaking to your customers and suppliers, get clear on your overall post-lockdown sales and marketing strategy. Look at what's worked before and why. And will it help and will it work for you post-lockdown? So considering things like collaborations for your business, many more businesses are open to this, as COVID has really shown how people and businesses can come together during this tough time. And I really believe this is going to continue. It's also a great time to review your prices, and also whether you can bundle or even unbundle your offering to uplift the perceived value your customers are receiving. Many people are really cautious with their spending right now for obvious reasons, and something that they may have felt is a necessity for them pre-COVID may now be thought of as more of a luxury item. So if you're able to vary your offering slightly to give you as many customers as possible the level of service they're willing to pay for, you are likely to be in the best possible position. Another thing that I feel is ultra important, arguably the most important thing right now, and is mindset. And we've touched on this quite a lot. And Mitch, I know you might want to have say a few things about this, but the first thing I would emphasize is that firstly, we've all been through this once already. We've beat it once already. Feeding back on the fact that you've already been through one lockdown and beat it, use that as a motivation to prove you can and will do it again. And in terms of overall mindset, I don't believe perfection exists. So because even the most mentally strong people are always working on it. So my advice would be to start off using the 4 Ps. So planning, actually creating a plan. It's proven to reduce stress and increase focus. So just by taking that step of writing down a plan of action, it can yield instant results from a mindset point of view. Of course, like we said, the plan needs to be actioned, but a proper plan's a starting point. People. Surround yourself with positive people. Don't let other people's negative energy drain your energy. Of course, part of your job as a leader and a business owner is to support your team who may be feeling negative, but how you communicate and position the situation to them is really important. If you're giving off positive, optimistic energy, it's going to resonate and feed through to them. So delivery is really crucial. The next P is places. So visualize that happy place in your mind, your reference point. Often business owners refer back to their why that we've just touched on. And doing this alongside something like meditation or yoga can really enhance the benefit. And the last P is practice. So practice, practice, practice. And one thing I've really learned over the years is that short and often is generally better than every once in a while for a long period of time. To build up habits so small that it's difficult to actually fail. Because you see many people who want to try things and they'll wake up on, say, a Monday and say, right, I've never meditated before, but it sounds good and I'm going to meditate for an hour every day from now on. It may work for a couple of days when you're really motivated and you have that buzz for it, but it's likely you're going to start to miss a day or two and the habit will quickly disappear. I watched a great video quite recently all about starting so small that it's practically impossible to fail. So in this example, if you want to start something like meditation, start with 1 minute a day. Sounds crazy, yeah, 1 minute, but because you're starting the habit, no matter what else you have planned in the day, you're still going to be able to find that 1 minute to complete it. And once the habit starts kicking in and momentum builds, you can start to increase it really quickly and easily. But the key thing when you're starting a new habit or starting anything new is momentum. So it's so important you make it as easy as possible for yourself. A few other things that really help keep your mind in its best state is obviously exercise. The benefits of exercise are widespread. Daily exercise is proven to reduce depression levels in the short term, dementia in the long term, and just overall boost your mood. And Another really important benefit of having carrying out good quality exercise is that it improves your sleep, which is vitally important. So even if you're unable to do like a full-blown workout every day, make sure you're making the most of your restricted trips outside. Because studies also show that you can increase your creativity by 60% just by going out for a walk. Again, you want to be as creative as possible in these times because they're so challenging. So it's a really beneficial thing to do. Taking regular screen breaks is another thing I just wanted to mention, because as everyone is spending more time working from home or on screens, such as like what we're doing today on the webinar, you need to just be conscious of the fact that you could potentially be sitting there looking at a screen for 3 hours without taking a break, 2 to 3 hours, you know. And WebMD recommend that you follow what's called the 20-20-20 rule, which involves you looking away from the screen every 20 minutes at something 20 meters away for 20 seconds. And if you are really struggling with your eyes and they're feeling really tired, use eye drops and turn your computer brightness down. That's something that's worked for me because it's something that I find quite difficult. And the last thing is really just focusing on the positives, you know, spending time with family again, socializing, seeing the world return to some degree of normality. From my own personal point of view, getting a haircut, you know, they're all things to look forward to in the coming months. And one thing that's worked for me is just jotting some of those things down and putting them in a prominent place so you can sort of see it each day with a smile. It might just give you that little boost. So they're the sort of things I'd like to just touch on in respect of mindset. I mean, Mitch, did you want to add anything else in that respect?
Do you know what? I think it's only worth kind of elaborating what it is that you were saying. And you know, someone, you know, I've struggled in the past with anxiety. I'm open. I've done videos about it, and I help people through it at the moment. I would say that, you know, it's tough, and I know a lot of people that, you know, it can't go out and exercise for whatever reason. You know, you just or don't want to, or they're too busy, or it's too cold. You know, you just have to just do it. And you know, there was a time I think it was 2 weeks ago, that I was in the same position. I just couldn't face it. You know, it's been extremely hard for us. You know, everyone's working long hours, and I think it got to like 9 o'clock at 9 o'clock at night, and I just did it. I went out, I did a 20-minute run, and from it, I got this. I listened to an audio book, which really helps me. So I know you touched on meditation. I think there's different forms of meditation, audio books, you know, which include a lot of positive thinking and mind transformation, how to be positive. I think they're one thing that I would definitely recommend. But I listened to an audio book while I was going out for a run, and my brain, I started coming up with all these different ideas. I thought I was going out to relax, and although it was relaxing, because I was in such a relaxed state of mind, I came up with all these creative ideas. The first thing I did was got home, and I know she's probably on this call, was I rang Yoda, who's a fellow director, runs our cloud side of things. She's actually chairing our leadership committee. There was loads of different things that I had from the leaders, about ideas about the leadership committee, and from that, she's taken a lot of them. We're launching our leadership committee of some fantastic ideas, and so I do think just do it as well. Like, make yourself do it. Don't let your inner voice tell you can't. That's one thing I want to add.
Yeah, it's true.
I'll go on there.
And the next thing that I think probably anyone who's listened to our webinars before will have heard me say before, but your cash flow. I mean, the next thing to really touch on is just make sure that you're managing your cash. And that starts really with building and testing your cash flow forecasts. So anyone who's listened to our previous webinars will have heard me say it, but it still remains as important as ever. So touch on the earlier point about speaking to your customers, speaking to your suppliers to get information. It will help you make your cash flow forecast as accurate as it can be.
So if we're talking about cash flow forecast, I speak to a lot of people who ask me the question that, you know, we're in COVID, right? We're coming out of COVID, whatever we want to say about it. But effectively, you know, cash flow forecasts are guessing, but even more so now because no one really knows what's happening or going to happen. It's all up in the air. So are we not essentially guessing?
I mean, there is an element of truth in that, in respect of there is an element of subjectivity in what you're putting down there. But the reality is, the argument that I'd always say to that is, without it, how can you possibly gauge what decisions you should be making? How can you quantify, for example, whether you even need funding, at what point you would need it, and let alone what level? And this is something that Darren will touch on when he comes on shortly. But having the cash flow forecast allows you to make the best possible informed decisions you can right now. And to me, in this climate, that's priceless. And not only that, once you put together a cash flow forecast, you can start stress testing it and looking at different scenarios. So, okay, we've got our realistic cash flow forecast, but what if things don't go to plan? What does that then look like? And we've done this with a number of clients, and I've seen them. When we first started the exercise, it was a case of, oh my God, I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. But as soon as we started working through it, they realized, you saw the relief sort of come out of their faces, and all of a sudden their body language changed. And they realized their fears were not as bad as what they thought, and they started believing there is a light at the end of this sort of COVID tunnel. So it's really, in my mind, the first step to taking back control of the situation. So I can't emphasize enough, where there is an element of guesswork involved with cash flow forecasts. Of course there is, because you're predicting, but it's essential. If you don't do it, you're not going to have any idea where you're going, you know. And sort of, so the next sort of thing I'd like to just touch on is systems and processes. We had a really good IAP session earlier this week about systems and processes, and I think this is a good time to be really looking at the things you do in the business as a business owner, and working out how much of your time are allocated to those things. Are you the right person to be doing those things in the business? Can it be delegated down to someone at a lower level, freeing up more of your time? Because right now you might have a lot of time, but when you get back into the day-to-day, that could quickly get sucked away. So testing your systems, making sure you're operating as efficiently as possible, and the right people are doing the right work is really also very important. And another thing that the systems play a part in, but stress test your business model as a whole. Have a real deep drill into your offering. Does it work now? And will it work? And will it need to adapt post-COVID? So as I sort of mentioned with the cash flow, financial modeling and creating different scenarios are really good to give you a better understanding and a gauge on sort of different pathways that you can take to achieve your goals. And most businesses will have collected a vast amount of data for one reason or another. So it's a good time, if you do have spare time, to actually do something with it. Bear in mind, of course, data collected pre-COVID may not be a totally meaningful representation of the new world we're living in, but it will give you some form of guidance. It will give you some sort of direction nevertheless. Alongside looking at your future and looking at your profitability, one big part of that is, of course, analysing your costs. That doesn't necessarily mean cancel all your costs, but just make sure that you're holding your suppliers accountable for delivering the right level of value. And finally, not last but not least, by any stretch, is your team and culture. Stay close to your team. You all really need to be aligned to fight this challenge together. And that starts by considering the well-being of everyone in your team. So just simple things like ensuring there's open lines of communication with all team members, ensure all team members are working reasonable hours as much as possible, encourage team members to go out for the daily walks and take on the mindset exercises that we've been talking. Another key thing is setting clear and achievable objectives. It's even more important now that everyone knows exactly what's expected of them. If you do have any workers that are on furlough, include them in communication. They're still part of your bigger team, you know. And consider carrying out a survey to identify which employees have concerns about their well-being and ensure that they know you're there to support them. And I suppose to finish off this sort of section, the biggest thing I want to encourage everyone is to just talk. Please just talk. Tell people how you feel. One thing that this pandemic has proved is just how many people are willing to come together, like I mentioned, and help each other. And that all really starts from speaking up. So don't bury your head in the sand. Your support network, which includes us, of course, are here to help you. And if you're able to listen to someone else too, you know what they say, a sort of a problem shared is a problem halved. It's proven to make you feel better as well. So listen to others, but talk yourself as well. Don't hide away.
I think it's worth saying as well, for loads of people listening that haven't got a team effectively, you know, they haven't got employees, and, you know, your team doesn't have to be just your employees, right? Your team is also everybody that, you know, your clients are your team, your suppliers are your team, everyone you work with and provide you a service or you have a close relationship with, look at as your team. So I would use all what Joe said before and just apply that to those people as well, partners as well, and so on. So look, you mentioned communications is massive, right? We all know communication is key. And one of the things I guess we've launched during the first lockdown, we launched it was our IAP, the acceleration program. And you know, you focus a lot on communication, and I think for those people that have done it, I think they'll understand. But you know, you want to kind of give us a bit more how that's helping people, what you're advising and what their people are doing in there?
Yeah, I mean, to give a bit of background about the program itself. I mean, like you said, we came together over lockdown and realised a few things, and the 7 sort of areas that I've just covered are based around the 7 segments of our wheel of success that we call it, which we deem to be the fundamental drivers of business success, and we use and focus on them during the program. So what we've learned over the years of working with thousands of business owners is most, if not all of them, are really brilliant, excellent at what they do, providing and delivering the product or service to a really high level. But when it comes to actually running the business, they can end up with so many thoughts and ideas. They should really struggle for ways to vet and prioritize them. And this can sort of lead the owner to sort of burying their head in the sand, not acting on any of them, feeling really like down and low. That results in the business not making progress and effectively becoming less effective. So there's also the issue which I call being at the top of the tree. So firstly, as a business owner, it's a lonely place with everyone looking up at you and expecting you to have all the answers. And on top of that, business owners, like we've said, don't often have that sort of crucial support network. They often make decisions based on the way we've always done it. So sort of missing possible opportunities that they would gain by speaking to people with different outlooks or perspectives. And finally, on top of that, because they're sort of in control of their own decisions and destinies, they don't really have anyone to hold them accountable. So they don't set goals or are ineffective in doing so. And the benefit of a support network, in my mind, I've really learned this over the last few years, it really can't be underestimated. So what we've done is created an interactive way of offering business consultancy in an online group format. They're 2 weekly online sessions, and during them you will have a focus on one of the 7 key drivers that we've mentioned. You'll receive expert insight from our team and special guests on certain sessions. You'll get to share challenges and successes with other business owners who all come from different backgrounds, which is great because they will offer different perspectives and thoughts on things, and focus on clear goals for the 2 weeks ahead. So you return to each session with a sense of achievement while boosting that feeling of accountability, which is just so crucial. Just to mention, we are running a completely free taster session towards the end of this month, so you can actually sample the program in real time with no obligation. So if anyone would like to hear more about the program, just get in touch, because we'll be happy to explain sort of how, for the price of a gym membership, we can help you take your business to the next level. So it is a bit of a minefield out there at the moment. It's too easy in these uncertain times to just get bogged down with the endless sort of possibilities of what you could be doing. So I would recommend just start small, target the one thing you can do right now that will get you the best result or add the most value to your business. Do that one thing first, get those endorphins flowing, and move on to the next thing confident and motivated. It's literally how momentum is built. So, I mean, the crisis has brought many challenges, there's no doubt about that, but I feel there's still plenty of opportunities out there, and it's important your business is set up to make the most of these. But like I said, the most important thing right now is for you to speak up if you have any concerns. We are here to help. And that's back to you, Mitch.
Yeah, and I think, yeah. So no, I think I wanted you to touch on I wanted to mention the IAP because I only came when we tested it at the start. I treated it as owning a business, and I came on to test it, and now I find it so valuable, and it makes me take action and do certain things. So I think it's absolutely I think it's phenomenal, and I hear some of the guests and everything, and the advice that you give on there is great, and I thought it's really important, I think, to be able to for everybody listening, I think, to hear some of that. So yeah, I know a few people who are on this webinar are on the IAP. So I think that they'll explain the kind of the results they're getting, if you like. I can see a comment in there, a comment we just had. But look, I think I want to move on, Joe. There's obviously been government updates and bank updates and everything like that.
Yeah.
What's you've put together key areas businesses and their owners should be aware of in light of the government announcements. Can you go through and share these with us before we get Darren in to give us our finance options? Because I can just see him sitting there all patient.
Yeah, we'll try and get Darren on as soon as possible. So First things first, I just want to say, I mean, I'm presenting it today, but I want to thank everyone from our Nordens family who's helped me with collating all this information that I'll be talking through today. Everyone at Nordens is really working tirelessly to make sure everyone stays up to date. So the things that I will go through now will be based on sort of course, where we are now. Again, like it has done, things are subject to change, but let's jump straight into it and start with furlough. So furlough's now been extended to the 30th of April 2021. At present, there's been no mention that it's going to be extended any further, but it could be. But at the moment, the cut-off for furlough is now 30th of April 2021. Basically, you can claim 80% of an employee's usual salary for hours not worked, which is now called flexi furlough, up to a maximum of £2,500 per month. So not loads has changed. It just basically means that the furlough scheme is more flexible than it was. In simple terms, fully furloughed employees cannot undertake any work while you're furloughed, but flexi furloughed employees, they can work for you fine and freely for the time that they're working. If they're on furlough and you log them as being on furlough for those hours or days, they're not allowed to do any work. So basically, if you're on furlough, whether it's part-time or full-time, whenever you're on furlough, you shouldn't be doing any work. Employees can be furloughed regardless of whether they're full-time, part-time, agency, flexible, zero-hour contracts, but the key thing is they must have been on the payroll by the 30th of October 2020, and they don't need to have been furloughed before. They can take other jobs while on leave, providing it doesn't breach the rules of their existing contract. And employees who were employed and were on the payroll on the 23rd of September, bit of a weird date, but that's the date that it is, who were subsequently made redundant or stopped working can be re-employed and furlough can be claimed. Of course, the employers can still top up employee wages at their own expense if they wish to. They just won't get support from the government for the extra bit. And employees on furlough still have the same rights of work as they always have done. The job retention bonus, which was going to be, that £1,000 one-off taxable payment to the employer for each person they kept employed throughout a certain period, that's been cancelled, obviously, because furlough's been extended. So the extension of furlough's replaced that. To very briefly touch on self-employed, there's not really loads to say now because the deadline for the last claim has closed. It was the 29th of January. So anyone that made it close to the deadline, you should have received your grant from the government by now. If you haven't, my suggestion would be to sort of give it to the end of the week, follow up with HMRC next week. But by the middle of next week, I'd expect all claims to have been settled because HMRC was saying they were working towards, I think it was 6 business days. So you should have it or have it very soon if you haven't already. Moving on to VAT. Any businesses who have deferred their VAT for that period where you were allowed to, which covered the 20th of March to the 30th of June 2020, have now got an option to pay that liability over an even longer period. So initially it was deferred until March 2021, but you can now defer it to March 2022. Although you have to opt in for that. And the funny thing is the portal to let you opt in is not even open yet, but you do have to make the application when it becomes open. And of course, we'll let you know. But in a nutshell, basically that deferred VAT liability that was due to be paid in March 21 can be extended to March 22 and you can pay it along the way. So it will ease your cash flow up a little bit more. Again, if it is something you're interested in doing and your cash flow forecast suggests it would be a good idea, get in touch with us and we can explain how to opt in, but you do need to make an opt-in with HMRC there. HMRC is still being lenient with VAT payment plans for other periods, which of course is only fair given the circumstances, but speak up and get something arranged sooner rather than later, because the later you leave it, the less lenient they're likely to be. A reduced rate of 5% VAT for the hospitality and entertainment industry has been extended up until the end of March. Again, it's not a huge point because many places are still shut, but it does apply to hot takeaway food and non-alcoholic beverages. So anyone offering a takeaway service, just make sure you're not overcharging or overpaying your VAT. The VAT reverse charge, I'm not going to go into huge detail on this because again, it's another big subject that potentially will be covered on another complete webinar. But basically, as at the moment, it's still going ahead. There is a lot of pressure for this to be delayed further. And I think we might cover this, like I said, in a subsequent webinar. But just to give you a bit of a heads up where the software companies are to make this actually work logistically, they're still working on making their systems compatible with these changes. So HMRC have announced a 6-monthly soft landing period. I think they did something similar for the pensions when they first came out, which basically means there won't be any surcharges or penalties. So it's going to be eased in gently, assuming there isn't another delay to it. Tax in general, you can set up a time to pay arrangement with HMRC for other taxes, but again, it's going to be contingent on you speaking up as early as possible. And in terms of personal tax directly, anyone who's got a personal tax liability that was due a few days ago, back at the end of January, are able to pay this over a 12-month period, providing they meet the three conditions, which are they owe 30,000 or you owe 30,000 pounds or less, you don't have any other payment plans or debts with HMRC, and you have no outstanding tax returns. So if you do want an extension, you need to get the tax return filed if you haven't already, and providing you don't owe too much, providing you don't owe 30,000 or more, and you don't have any other payment plans in place, you should be okay to get a 12-monthly extension to that payment date. There's no need to contact HMRC to do this either. You can actually set this up online. And if you weren't aware, the deadline for self-assessment is obviously usually the 31st of January, but HMRC have agreed an extension to the end of February. Bear in mind, though, interest will be accruing from the 31st of January if you haven't settled your tax bill. So although the extension's there, you're not going to get a penalty for late filing, but you will get interest charged as we go. One final thing to touch on in terms of the overall tax landscape is that disposals of UK residential property, how we declare that and how we pay the tax has changed from April 2020. So anyone disposing of a residential property from April 2020, you need to report that to HMRC within 30 days of completion and pay the tax. And that's a big change from the old rules where you just put it on there as part of your tax return. So anyone that has done this or is thinking of doing this and are not too sure about what they need to do or what they should do, speak to us. But in a nutshell, you have to pay your tax on the gain within 30 days. And we've come across a number of cases.
That's only for investment properties, right?
Residential properties, yeah. Yeah, UK residential properties.
What I'm saying is your home. What about your actual home?
Yeah, well, generally your home will not qualify because it's based on you'll get the relief, your private residence relief. So it probably won't apply for your home. Yeah, it's investment properties. Yeah. So we've come across quite a few cases where properties have been sold since April 20 and sellers have not been totally aware of this and therefore they're in default with HMRC, which is not a good place to be in. So just if you sell a property or you're planning to, just remember there's a change to the tax rules there. And yeah, I mean, grants, in terms of grants, I think the route for grants and sort of grants based on business rates and things like that, it's just talk to your local council. If you haven't already and you feel you may be eligible for some form of grant, get in touch with your local council as soon as possible because the government have given them autonomy to give incentives out to businesses where they feel necessary. So they've basically got a lot of discretion here. So get in touch with them and they'll be able to guide you. So I think that covers the sort of key updates following the recent announcements. There hasn't been loads of changes. The main one was furlough being extended, but yeah, I mean, like I've said, we'll keep everyone up to date for our various channels. So just keep looking out for updates from us. But for now, Mitch, it's back to you and hopefully we can get Darren on.
Yeah, Darren said, thanks, Joe. Honestly, Joe, thank you. There's a lot of content there. And that's why I said at the beginning for people to have their pen ready because there's a lot of it. But look, Darren, thank you for waiting.
No problem.
You've been waiting there very still. Look, you head our corporate finance team. You've been helping business owners, through this period with whether it be bounce back CBILS and all different types of finance. But what finance options are available right now? Is there any changes? And I know that you've probably got some things you want to say.
Yeah, so in terms of changes around the bounce back loan and the CBILS, there's not really much that's happened. Probably since the last time we did a webinar, there's been small changes such as, for example, the bounce back loan. If you didn't take up to the limit that you could have, which was 50,000 or 25% of your turnover, they're allowing you to now have one top up to your limit if you didn't take it. So that was a change that happened fairly recently since the last time we did a webinar. But other than that, with the bounce back, there isn't really any changes. A question that I keep getting quite a lot recently though is that my bank doesn't offer bounce back loans. So what do I do or where do I turn to? So there isn't really many options around that. If you do want a bounce back loan and your bank doesn't, then it's looking like Starling Bank are the only bank that are prepared to take new business on and offer a bounce back loan. So yeah, bear that in mind if your bank doesn't quite offer it.
You have to move your bank account across the sterling if you want to.
What's that? Sorry.
You have to move your bank account across the sterling.
Well, for the bounce back loans, you don't have to move. You'll have to set up an account with them. It doesn't have to be your sole account. You can still keep your business account elsewhere. I'll come on to it with the C-bills, but with the C-bills, if you want to get a C-bills with sterling, then they are going to require you to move everything over. So the bounce back loan, you don't have to. With the bounce back loan, we're still seeing decisions within 24 to 48 hours. Interest rate still the same at 2.5% a year. Term period still up to 10 years, and there's still the 12-month interest-free and repayment-free period. So nothing's really changed there.
When is the deadline for the bounce back loans?
So the deadline to have the application in is the 31st of March. That's for the bounce back loan and the C-bills. There is talk of another scheme. I'll come on to that in a minute. But yeah, so they haven't said whether the application has to be in by the end of the 31st of March or the actual payment received from or it has to be approved by the 31st of March. I wouldn't take any chances by leaving it too late. So if you haven't applied and you haven't made any decisions around that, I would look to try and move with it ASAP, just to make sure that you don't miss that deadline. Okay. With regards to the C-bills, yeah, no updates. It's still no personal guarantee up to 250,000. Any more than that, personal guarantees start getting involved, and it's still calculated the same way. So 25% of your turnover. Now, what you can do is you can potentially get more than one C-bills with various different lenders, as long as it meets the criteria of the 25% of the turnover. So, for example, a business that has £2 million worth of turnover, 25% works out to 500,000. If you were to go for one C-bills, you'd have to then get a personal guarantee involved on that 500,000. Whereas if you spread that and went to two separate lenders, you could get 500,000, but split into two different C-bills, keeping them under 200 at 250, and then there's no personal guarantees involved. So you can do that sort of as many times as you want, as long as the lenders are okay with it. You know, the C-bills are still underwritten like normal finance, so you know they will need to take a view on it if they're comfortable. So as long as the affordability stacks up and they're not worried about the level of risk and debt in the business, then it should be fine. Decisions around C-bills now are looking between about 2 days and 4 weeks in extreme circumstances. So even more of a reason to kind of get your applications in now if it's taken around about a month. Interest rates roughly between 2 and 11% we're seeing, depending on the lender. The term period is up to 6 years, and again there's still the 12-month interest-free and repayment-free period. And like I said before, the schemes end the 31st of March 2021. Now, other questions that I'm getting is, you know, what if I've taken a bounce back loan, or what if I've taken a C-bills and I need more funding? So you can refinance a bounce back loan with a C-bills to increase the level of funding that you get, but you can't have a bounce back loan and a C-bills together. So you can't have both. You would have to, part of the condition is to pay off the bounce back loan with the C-bills. And you can also do that with a C-bill. So you can refinance your C-bills with one lender, you can go to another lender to refinance it. But again, that's going to be at the lender's discretion. Not all lenders would be comfortable doing that. So you might just have to speak with them if that's what you're looking to do. But there's an option there to potentially refinance it to kick off your new 12-month interest-free, repayment-free. So that's something to bear in mind as well. Now, if you're not able to go down either of these two routes for whatever reason, your bank doesn't offer it, or you know the lenders aren't prepared to increase C-bills or give you additional C-bills, then it is looking like you're going to have to go down like the normal funding route. But firstly, the most important thing, now going back to what Joe said about cash flow forecast, I would say the first thing to do is identify exactly how much you need and what you need the finance for, because depending on that would depend on what sort of finance product you go for. I've seen it too many times where people are in the wrong finance products and now they're paying increased interest rates. So that would be the first step before you start looking at applying for the normal funding or be away from the government schemes. I am seeing a lot of funding being declined off the back of credit scores and credit ratings. So bear that in mind before you start making any applications or looking to get finance, because it might just be that it's a non-starter from the off, just knowing this. So do a credit search on your company. If it's incredibly weak, then we could know from the start that you're just not going to get finance. but we have been working with a company recently who actually provide a guarantee credit score improvement. So what they do is they charge a fee, but they will guarantee that they'll increase your credit rating from, you know, D to A. If they aren't able to do that, then you don't pay them for the service. So it's sort of like a no-win, no fee. It's a bit of a no-brainer, you know, if the credit score is going to increase to a significant amount that you can now acquire finance. But bear that in mind, if anyone wants to hear more about that, get in touch, I can talk you through it. But it could be the difference between whether you actually get funding or don't, because that's quite a big one that I'm seeing declines happen for recently. And then the last thing is probably the future funding. So what's going to happen after the 31st of March? So it's a $1 million question, really. We don't know what's going to happen, whether there's going to be any more schemes or government plans to help there. Speaking with lenders and industry experts and people, you know, that we partner up with, it sounds like there is going to be another scheme. We don't know exactly what it's going to look like or for certain, but it's going to come in hopefully at the end of April, at the end of March, so start of April. And like I said, I don't want to mislead anyone with information that's not guaranteed yet, but the speculation is that there's probably going to be less of a guarantee by the government, so they're not going to guarantee as much of the finance, and the cost of the finance there. So it's not going to be 12-month free, repayment free, and they're not covering the interest charges. So that's all going to come from the start. But there probably will be something that comes off the back. But yeah, it's just speculation for now. So once we've got more information or closer to the time, we'll be able to go out with something or update everyone with what that looks like. But yeah, other than that, there isn't much else. So that's it for me.
I think you're very knowledgeable on it. Probably why that in your background there's all certificates, and in my background, normal pictures. Yeah. But no, I think it's worth saying that there is, most of the time, there is something out there for someone. It's just no. I think a lot of people come forward, don't they? They don't necessarily know how much exactly they need, and then it's the case of they go down the wrong route of trying to get the wrong type of finance. And I think spending that little bit of time understanding how much they need with the forecast, and then understanding their options before they go, you know, strictly CBILS or strictly, you know, there's so many different options.
There's the most common one I get is people say to me, I need a loan, and then I ask for how much, and they say as much as I can get. And it's like, well, firstly, do you even need a loan? Let's identify the problem. It might be that a loan isn't going to solve your problems, and there's a different finance products that will. And also, as much as I can get doesn't really help. You know, we need to actually pinpoint exactly how much you need and why you need it to get you into the best suited, the best fit product. That's the best way.
You could end up saving your money. It could be a lot cheaper than doing it.
And you know what? It could end up just being a loan for as much as you can get, but it's often quite rare the case. You know, it's good to understand, and it helps identify. You know, you understand your financial position. It spots when you're going to need the finance. You might end up looking for something now, paying interest on it now. You don't actually need it now. You need it in a 6 months, 9 months time, or at least gives you time to find the right facility.
It's definitely the starting point, cash flow forecast, and Joe touched on it. Joe touched on it earlier. I think there's a story with a client. A client rings us up, you know, panicking, needing X amount of money, and so on. And once we did the cash flow forecast, it turns out that they actually don't need the money for another 9 months. They're actually stable enough to deal with it. And all of a sudden, you know, the mentality changes, and it kind of leads to other things. And I think they're probably doing okay at the moment. But yeah, no, Darren, thank you very much. I know you've been waiting. It was very, very interesting. And like I said, it will be recorded, so if anyone hasn't taken notes, then people will be able to watch back this video. So thank you again. Look, Joe, I want to bring you back in. And one of the things that I want to ask you is about opportunities. There's other opportunities out there. You know, one thing I keep hearing people saying is when there's uncertainty, there's opportunity. And, you know, there's obviously uncertainty at the moment, but what actual other opportunities do you think are out there, and what are your teams advising their clients at the moment?
So I think following on from what we were touching on earlier about sort of opportunities to slightly tweak your business model, offer something in a brand new space, or create a brand new concept that might not be too dissimilar to what you were doing, but it just has that little tweak that will appeal to a different audience. And there are also opportunities to collaborate with other businesses, like I mentioned, which will create those synergies and at the same time sort of diversify your offering. I mean, we've seen quite a lot over this period that the businesses that were sort of a bit more widely diversified were able to be a bit more robust in what they were doing. The businesses that were heavily reliant on one customer or one supplier or one way of working really found things difficult. And we've seen lots of good pivot stories over the last 10 months where businesses have just slightly tweaked what they're doing. They haven't completely done anything unbelievably different. It's just a slight tweak here or there to what they're doing, but it's really had a big effect. And it's helped them remain successful. So I think, again, like I keep saying, I've said it a few times now, but it's about speaking to your customers, understanding what they really want and value during this period, as it's going to help you frame not just your offering now, but your offering as you come out of COVID. Because there may be services that your customers actually really like or would really be interested in that you can actually deliver, but you just haven't made them aware. And alongside sort of pivot opportunities within your sort of current business model, there's also ways to sort of touching on what Darren was saying about using funding and finance in the way of investments, you know. So we have sort of big investments such as property and even things like mergers and acquisitions, because right now the market is really ripe for well-run, structured and growth-focused businesses who are really managing their funding well to really take advantages of businesses who are perhaps not and are looking for an exit and looking for a way out. And sort of as Darren's alluded to before, taking on debt at preferable rates in the current climate can actually really be that springboard to take your business forward quickly, providing it's planned and managed well. So in terms of big investments, such as a buyout or something like that, or a takeover of a competitor, the market is actually good for that right now. We're seeing quite a lot of movement in there. And there are also sort of smaller operational investments you can make. So if you're not ready now to make a bit more of a larger scale investment, like we've just said, consider how sort of any cash surplus you're able to build up can work the best for you and help you in your quest towards your long-term goal. Some of the areas that we're seeing is marketing. Now, that's one of the things that you'll see a lot of businesses, as soon as times get tough, will just go, right, I'm stopping all marketing. It's an expense I don't need. But you're seeing a lot of successful businesses actually take the opposite route. They're saying, do you know what, this is a perfect time to capitalize on marketing because no one else is doing it. Everyone else is stopping. So I'm going to capitalize on it and make the most of it. And of course, it has to be done within reason, but you're seeing the businesses that are doing that and adopting a proper marketing push with a clear sort of purpose and vision behind it are really, really striving forward. Another thing is recruiting. So again, it's an employer's market right now. So it'd be really, really good time to start looking at building that team of the future. One other thing that we come across is automation. Now, that's something that we really think has got legs for the future, you know, because looking at those systems and processes that you can automate, well, it's not only going to improve your efficiencies all round, but it'll improve, more importantly, your effectiveness, and that will filter onto your bottom line. So any systems and processes you've got in your business, consider, could they be automated? Do they need human intervention? Some will, but not all of them. And we've got stories of what we've done at Nordens where we've made things automated and it saved us days at a time. You know, it saved us so much, allowing our people to work on more creative projects, you know. And equipment and development, the last thing I wanted to touch on was we've seen many clients make the most of this as sort of part of their overall investment strategy, especially as things stand that the government are supporting investments in the form of what's called R&D tax relief, which we've mentioned before quite a few times on previous webinars. And in a nutshell, it can actually result in you getting cash back from HMRC, but a lot of businesses are still really unaware that it exists. So if you have a limited company, because this is only applicable to limited companies, and you've conducted any activities at all, you may feel have an element of development in them. So developing the systems and processes, or developing a better way of working. Get in touch and we can explain more about how you could potentially have a claim there. So I think there are a few things that businesses can be thinking about. And if you do find yourself in that position with a bit of surplus cash, how you can make that work best for you.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. There's lots and lots of opportunities out there. And, you know, one thing that I get met with when I talk to business owners about opportunity, they don't want to get into any type of debt. And maybe this is more of a finance question. So Darren, I don't know if you want to unmute, but you know, when we talk about growth and M&A, people are scared to take debt at the moment, and people are, unless it's to survive effectively. But one thing that you said on a previous webinar was, you gave a great analogy of debt and how another way to look at it to do with, and I know you know what I'm thinking of, and I think I'd like you to share it again, because I think it's a great way of looking at it, to kind of follow on what Joe was saying about how to potentially use it as an opportunity.
Yeah, so it's basically that when I often have this conversation with clients around about, you know, people that are frightened to take on debt or worried about taking on finance, I often give the analogy about buying a home, or if they're a homeowner, and if you're a homeowner, the chances are you've got a mortgage. But if I asked you if you own your own home, would you consider yourself a failure or not doing very well or in loads of debt? You would say no. You would think you're doing well. You're on the property ladder. You've got property. You know, you're doing right. You're not renting. But what people forget is that they've just signed up for 30, 35 years in some cases worth of debt in the form of a mortgage. And when you put it into that perspective, you'll happily do that in your personal life and your personal name, and you consider yourself successful or you're in the right direction. But you're not prepared to take on debt in your business to push you forward to your business goals. You should really have the same mindset. And when you kind of get rid of that mindset, that dirty word of debt, it will actually push you forward to your goals quicker.
Yeah, it resonated with me when you said it last time, and I thought I just wanted you to share that for anybody who didn't hear last time. So yeah, that's it. I just wanted you to come. So you can mute again now. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. It probably gives Joe a bit of a breather as well. So okay, so look, finally, Brexit, right? So it's a grey area. We don't know too much about it, but we know some things about it. But for the final part, Joe, can you give us an outline or key things to consider in the light of Brexit? Like I said, I appreciate it's a wide subject. It's something we're going to do, and we'll do another webinar fully focused on Brexit. So, I'm conscious of time, but if we can kind of just touch on it.
Yeah, and like you said, it is a widespread area, and it is still the early days of the transition, of course. And we'd like to think the rules that are a bit grey now will become a lot clearer as they start taking shape. But one thing that HMRC have done for those businesses sort of exporting and importing goods, they've set up a Brexit and a tariff checker, which we recommend to use and get on and have a look at to start off with. I know some people in our office have been sending that on to clients as well, because it will just give you a bit of an understanding of how it applies to your business. Because like we said, there's a lot of different rules depending on your business and depending on your situation. So that would be my starting point. And we're happy to share the links to those after the webinar if needs be as well. But just touching on some of the sort of key headlines. So anyone trading with the EU in general, to do business with the EU from 1st of January, you'll need what's called a UK EORI number. So that's EORI, but it's pronounced EORI. The girls in our VAT team have been telling me. We had a little session on how to pronounce it, so I'm going to give it my best shot. You'll also need an EU12, albeit that's something that your customer or supplier could have overseas, but you'll need both of those or you won't be able to trade freely with the EU. So as a starting point, one of the things you should do is contact all the businesses that you export to in the EU to just make sure they have the correct documentation, because you just don't want any hold-ups. Things are bad enough as it is without any hold-ups because we don't have the right documents in place. The other thing to really check is when you're importing or exporting, make sure that you use that tariff checker just to check the correct commodity codes are being used, because if an incorrect commodity code is being used, it could mean that either yourself or your customers are being overcharged on the tariffs. So they're sort of just a couple of general things. In terms of VAT on exports of goods, from the 1st of January, exports to EU countries are now classed outside the scope of VAT. However, you'll still need to record these transactions on your VAT return, just like you would for a zero-rated sale. So you just effectively treat them as a zero-rated sale, even though they are outside of the scope. And that will, I believe, develop as things go on, but that's how you need to deal with it at the moment. VAT on imports, goods above 100, right? So this is split into goods above £135 and goods below £135. So on goods above £135 that you're importing, VAT is applied and it's charged at the UK port. So you will effectively be importing it. You'll be charged 20% UK VAT at the port to release the goods. Now you have two choices. You can pay the VAT and reclaim it back on your next VAT return, or you can utilize the postponed VAT accounting that the government have set up, which works in a similar way to a reverse charge. So it basically goes on your VAT return and controls itself out, which means you don't have to pay anything there and then. So I imagine that will be the route most businesses will go down, because it saves you having to fork out for the VAT only to reclaim it back in a month or a quarter's time. In terms of imports on goods that are £135 and under, originally before Brexit, there was something called low value consignment relief, which basically exempted imports at £15 and under. That's been removed now, so that doesn't apply anymore. So anything under £135, you will have to account for the VAT as part of the reverse charge procedure if you're working business to business. So again, it won't result in an overall net figure, but it needs to an overall sort of net VAT figure, but you will need to record it on your return. If you're dealing with customers, so business to customers, any foreign sellers that are bringing goods into the UK or selling goods into the UK to non-registered individuals can apply to be part of the UK VAT system and charge UK VAT when supplying goods. If they don't, the VAT will be applied to the import by HMRC and will not be released until paid. If they don't do this, you as the UK consumer could suffer the VAT return, could suffer the VAT, and that would result in you getting one of those potential letters from the post office saying you have a duty to pay, so you need to come and collect it. I'd imagine most big businesses will have already got that sorted. It will be more smaller businesses that are shipping across to you as a consumer may not do this, and then therefore you may be aware as a consumer that you might have some extra duties to pay. In terms of services, either selling or buying services across the EU, not a lot has changed, to be honest. There are a few exceptions, but the general rule is business to business sales of services continue to generally be taxed in the country of the customer, whereas business to consumer sales of services will generally be subject to tax in the country of the seller. So not a lot has changed there at all, to be honest. But one thing to note in terms of services is UK businesses that are using what's called the mini one-stop shop or MOS system for selling digital services will need to register for what's now called the non-union MOS and have a valid EU VAT number. And the deadline for registration for this is the 10th of February. So we've literally got a week to get that in place. So if you are under the MOS scheme or the MOS system at the moment and you haven't got this in place, speak to us because we might be able to help you get that over the line, but time is running out. There are special rules for goods passing through Northern Ireland, but we don't have the time, and it would take probably another whole webinar to discuss that. But we'd recommend anything that you do with Northern Ireland, you take specialist advice because the rules are a bit more obscure. Moving on to employees, our HR team have produced a flowchart that relates to employees' rights to work in the UK following Brexit, and we'll provide you the details to access that after the webinar as well. But like many things, it's another wide, complex area and something that you're likely to need specialist advice on. But some of the key things to be aware of. So employers have to check that prospective employees have the right to work in the UK, just like they always have. There's no requirement for employers to carry out retrospective checks. So in other words, if an employer has conducted a right to work check for an EEA or Swiss national before 1st of January, you don't need to do it again. People who are EEA or Swiss nationals who were in the UK before the end of the transition period have until the 30th of June. That's a key date for the employment rights and the employees. It's 30th of June 2021 to apply for what's called either settled or pre-settled status, which will give them the right to work in the UK. So employers can continue to use the EEA, which stands for European Economic Area, just in case I keep abbreviating it, and Swiss passports. And they can also use the national identity cards as evidence of an individual's right to work in the UK. So they're the things that you can use. Alternatively, to prove the right to work, employees can give employers access to their online check-in service to prove their status. But employers can't insist their employees share this information due to sort of data flow rights and things like that. So they can't insist, but they can share it to speed up the process. Another key thing to be aware of, because obviously the free movement between the UK and the EEA or the EU area has ended, anyone entering the UK after the 1st of January will not be able to apply for the settled or pre-settled status. They will actually require a visa to be able to work in the UK under the new immigration system, which they'll need to apply for, should be applying for prior to their arrival. So therefore, to confirm the rights of people arriving in the UK from now on, you're going to need to see evidence of the visa alongside their passport or national ID card. Anyone who wants to employ someone from outside the UK will also need to apply for a sponsor license, just like you would for anyone outside the EU. And the final point is that if you are sending people to work in the EU, or if someone from the EU is coming over to work in the UK temporarily, the national insurance rules have changed. So you generally will only need to make contributions in one country at a time. So you won't be charged national insurance in both countries. A couple of our little more smaller points or easier points to digest, I suppose. Sanctions have come into force that are going to require compliance from all agents and accountants. It's something everyone was doing already. It just means we're no longer part of EU sanctions. The UK has its own sanctions regime. So really all you need to do is just make sure that your systems and processes are updated to include the new sanctions lists that will be applicable in the UK. And a few other smaller points. Mobile phone providers are saying they have no plans to bring back roaming, but they could in the future. There are limits on what you can bring back to the UK from the EU. Previously it was unrestricted, but now the limit is around £390 for most things, separate limits on certain things. From 2022, we as UK citizens will have to buy a £6 visa waiver for holidays and short stays in the UK. The exact date of that hasn't been announced yet, but that's something that's going to be coming into force from 2022. And UK passports, as well as turning blue, you're going to need to have 6 months on them till the expiry date when entering the EU. Beforehand, you could literally go in up until the day of the passport expiry, but now you're going to need a 6-month window. So it may...
I learned that the hard way.
Did you? Yeah. It might need to mean that you get your passport renewed a little bit earlier than expected. So, I mean, that covers, like I said, it's a really, really headline thing. There's so much to cover on Brexit, but I'd just like to touch on one last thing before I finish. It's around the upcoming budget, which is on the 3rd of March, I believe. And we've been speaking with our tax team internally, who have offered us a few thoughts. Now, again, a lot of this is speculation, but a few things that are being bandied about are strong demand to extend the tax duty stamp duty incentive, beyond the 31st of March. Currently, that cuts off and stops on the 31st of March, and generally the property sector has thrived since that announcement was made. There is a lot of pressure to extend that. There's also considerations to extend furlough beyond the 30th of April. Again, touching on the capital gains tax rules that I mentioned about selling properties, there's also a possibility that government are looking to increase the rates of capital gains tax, and they're currently between 18 and 28%. What's been proposed is that they're potentially looking at inlining them with income tax rates. So they'll be more likely to be 20, 40 or 45% perhaps. But again, if you are looking at carrying out a big transaction before or in this year, you may want to seek specialist advice as soon as possible, because there might be things you can do to protect yourself and lock yourself in at these rates in case they do change. And obviously the corporation tax rate was in process of being reduced, but obviously fast forward 12 months, there's now a possibility that things may go in the opposite direction to up to 23% is being mentioned. And there's also talk of a wealth tax being potentially introduced. And I think all of these are methods that the government are going to potentially use to claw back some of the support that they've given to everyone. So nothing set in stone yet, but keep your eyes open for the budget. And like I said, if there's anything that you feel you may be doing on a big scale, such as selling part of your business, selling a property, just maybe take some tax advice now, because if something changes in the budget and you could have done something before, it would not really be the best situation to be in. So the tax team just wanted to reiterate that obviously as a general point, no doubt 2020 has been a tough year for all businesses, but obviously with the support of government, without the support of government, I should say, it could have been worse. And I mean, although we're still in lockdown, we do remain optimistic that once the vaccinations come to a conclusion, we are going to see businesses coming back, springboarding quickly and making up for lost time. I think I saw it just before we came on that the vaccinations are up to 10 million now. So they are making real headway there. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, the last thing from me really is there's a lot of challenges out there. There are no doubt. We're not trying to sugarcoat it. But if you are able to do the simple things, speak up, plan ahead and get really clear, I really do have confidence in the future and the ability for businesses to come and, like I say, springboard out the next lockdown, clearer, leaner and better position. So there are opportunities. There is light at the end of the tunnel. I do appreciate it's tough. But yeah, that's sort of my closing sort of thoughts really, Mitch.
Yeah. Thanks, Joe. I mean, I know Brexit's a minefield, so I appreciate you taking the time to go and find all that. And I think I'll kind of reiterate what you just said. I think it's really important that that people speak up and seek support if need be, to get through this time. I think there's companies like us that are there to help you get through, and and help you thrive at the other end of it as well. And yeah, so look, Joe, Darren, thank you so much for coming on. There was a hell of a lot to cover. So there was a lot of content out there. If anyone watching has got any questions, literally get in touch with us. We're here to help. Any finance options or any potential, you want any support, or the interactive accelerator program as well. There's new groups starting on that. Get in touch with us. You can email me directly, mitch@nordens.co.uk, but there will be a follow-up email going out, and just reply to that with any questions. We'll get them answered. But for those of you watching, thank you for joining our webinar. Thank you again to Darren and Joe. Stay safe, everybody. Look after yourselves, and we hope to speak or see you very soon.